Yes, good morning, everybody. Wednesday. It's midweek, and we are excited about all of what is transpiring here in this space of achievability. And I'm excited to come again today as your achievability partner to help you tap into your full potential and unlock whatever is next for you. I want to say thank you to everyone who comes every day. There were some people who come afterwards, they catch it at a later time, but then they reach out, right? I want to say thank you to those of you who reach out. Feedback is always welcomed, and I really appreciate those of you. I was working in a sense last week and ran into a gentleman, and he says, yeah, he says, man, I've been watching. And he started, and I knew he was telling the truth because he started repeating some of the things that were mentioned. And one of the things that spoke to him the greatest was that change, that growth requires change, and he just began to express how that spoke to him. And there have been others who have expressed how the content has really been helping, and how it has been thought provoking for them. And so to that end, I say that it's what you make of it, right? And at this point, if it's going to be, it's up to you. And I'm just simply here to share, to serve as the reminder. I'm simply here to serve as the pusher, as the enabler, to let you know that that a part of knowing what you want in life and getting out of that huge percentage of people who don't know or not clear about what they desire, but actually being able to know who you are, reacquaint yourself with yourself, and so that you can increase your self knowledge, and knowing who you are helps translate into what you desire. And so we've really made a case for putting the who in front of the what. And then even on yesterday, we talked about the how, and how to identify your values, and that particular piece becomes the how, that particular piece of the puzzle. It actually translates more so into what is able to be articulated from you yourself to yourself, because we advocate that you don't just ask yourself questions, but that you ask and answer those same questions, right? So the intent of a question is to get an answer. And so I know it's typically said that it's crazy to ask yourself a question and then answer yourself, but it's crazy to have a question and not answer it. And here's the truth: the answers are already within. And so a part of this journey of self-discovery in this month of live stream series is that I want you to know that the answers are already in you, but you've got to do your inner work in order to extract those answers from within. And so the danger of seeking answers from other sources is that someone could potentially give you an answer that is not consistent with your own personal assignment and alignment, and that you are God's idea, right? And there's nothing that anyone can do that can take away from, but people sure will try to add to and or diminish, because people don't mind you being good, they just don't want you to be better than them. And so it requires that we are in the right circle. It requires that we have the right community. It requires that we are around people. One of the things I value, we talked yesterday about identifying your values. One of the things I value most, I value competence. I value being around people who are competent in who they are and what they do, because these people tend not to want to compete with someone else. When you're competent and you know you are who you are, then you tend not to want to compete with other people. But competent people, instead of competing, they collaborate. And most of what we are is the sum total of those collaborations with competent people, who don't view you as a threat, but rather they're thrilled about who you are and who you are becoming, right? And so I value a lot of those things. I said yesterday, I value coaching. I value conversation. I want to talk. I want to talk. I just want to have good conversation, right? Because so many times we don't know who we are around, and the very thing that you are lacking could very well be in close proximity to you. But if you don't have the conversations, if you're not conversating, if you don't have the connections, if you're not valuing community, healthy community, then you may not see it. So bless you, Pastor Cedric Dion Beard Sr. Yes, sir. So it requires that we be around people who are competent, because the opposite of a competent person is an incompetent person, and then you're likely spend time trying to coach them up to competency, and yeah, it just doesn't always work like that. So at this moment in your life, you can't afford to slow down in this race for them to catch up. There's some people who are going to be left behind. Why? Because John Maxwell says that there is no significance without sacrifice. And sometimes the sacrifice, the very thing that we have to sacrifice, is who we wanted to go take with us, is who we wanted to come along with us. And sometimes it does not mean that your heart is no longer pure, but it just means that if that desire for them is stronger than a desire for yourself, then you've misplaced your values, because we can never be anything to anyone else that we have not first been to ourselves. And so my time today is really short. One being because I was trying to wait. These landscapers are outside, and they were just noising. I'm like, I can't do this right now, and so I'm trying to wait on them. And then I'm looking at my watch, and I'm like, no, but I am on schedule, so I can't just wait on them to finish. So I'm just, okay, we're gonna go with it, right? But I talked yesterday about identifying your values and knowing what matters to you. Like, what is it that you are naturally drawn to? What is it that when you're doing it, you feel like you're actually in your element? You do it effortlessly, right? Those things help identify what really matters to you. And the message that we are promoting is that there's no more time for you to only be concerned, or mainly concerned, should I say, about what other people desire and knowing everyone else, and then sitting down, looking at yourself and saying, and having to admit that you don't even know yourself. So let's get reacquainted with you. Let you get reacquainted with yourself. And aside from knowing everyone else's desires and their likes and their dislikes, let's talk about you, and let's focus on you for a moment, because you'll only be as good to them as you are to yourself. May I suggest that you start treating yourself better. I mean, stop letting yourself go without in the name of helping other people who would let you go without if the shoe was on the other foot. I mean, let's start treating yourself better as in making sure that you are present for you and with you at any and every given time and opportunity that presents itself, that you're not just trying to make sure everybody else is happy. Let them take their happiness into their own hands, and you take yours into your hands. Why? Because your relationship with yourself is what's going to drive every other relationship that you have. You'll never be good with anyone else if you're not okay with yourself. And so how's your relationship with yourself is the question, right? And so when you start doing this inner work of identifying your own personal values, what happens is then you start becoming aware of who you are. And we threw some words out yesterday. One of those words was authenticity. You have to be authentically you, right? like not trying to be someone else, not trying to be who you admire. It's okay to admire people, but you don't admire them to become them. You admire them to help inspire you to be your greater self, right? And so authenticity is very important, because if you're not authentic, then you're trying to replicate, you're trying to mimic and mock and be someone who you are not. And newsflash, we don't need another them. The world needs you, because you are God's unique expression. There has never been and will never be another you. And so you've got to favor us. We're waiting on you. We're waiting on you to tap into your full potential and unlock whatever Charles Davis, whatever is next for you, right? And so another big word that I threw out there yesterday that I really want to come back to today. I initially intended to talk about identifying your passions, but when I ended the live yesterday, something came over me that said, you didn't talk about aligning our actions with our aspirations. And so I'm back today. Before we start talking about passions, we need to talk about alignment, right? I threw that word out there yesterday. I'm back at it today. Alignment. We need to talk about aligning your actions with your aspirations. We need to talk about that, because so many people lack action, right? And then I was in the store the other day, and a gentleman was right there, and we were in the what were we looking at? Plums. We were looking at plums. Praise the Lord. And he says, man, he looked at the price. He's like, man, that's kind of high for some plums. And I told him, I said, yeah, man. I said, the only thing that's still cheap on the market right now is talk. Talk is the only thing that's still cheap right to this day. It always has been, and to my humble estimation, I believe it always will be. Talk is always going to be the cheapest thing on the market, which is why it's easy for people to say what they want. It's easy for people to say what they desire, but most people stop at desire. Most people stop at desire because beyond desire, there is discipline. Beyond desire, there is determination. Beyond desire is what it really requires of us in order to see it happen. So we're not just goal setting, but we're also making sure that we are developing plans of action and aligning our actions with our aspirations. Now, we are of the idea that you have some aspirations. We are of the idea around here that you have a target, that there is something that you are aiming for. And you're not aiming to do, but you're aiming to become. Don't aim to do, aim to become. And so why? Because you have to be it before you can do it. And so many people just focus on doing things instead of becoming. And the bigger picture is that we become. The bigger picture is that you be, because if you be it, then doing it will be effortless, right? And so then it's your element, because it's who you are, right? And so I'm able to sit and talk to you, and there's so many people like, I don't know how you do it, but yeah, let me tell you, I've got years of recorded hours where I've had to do something that was totally out of my norm, right? I'm not photogenic. I do not care about being in front of anybody's camera, but what I do care about helping people see their full potential. What I do care about is helping people achieve what they aspire to accomplish. What I do care about is seeing people go from existing to living. And so if that means sitting in front of a camera and doing something that is out of my comfort zone, then that I had to step out of that in order to accomplish the greater goal. And so our comfort zones are really killing our creativity and our consistency and the courage and and in fact, what we need to give our contribution to the time that we are in. You have a contribution to this generation, but if you don't get out of your comfort zone, then you're not giving us not what you are, but who you are. Give us who you are. And so it's being authentically you, but then it's aligning, Dr. Redmond. Good morning to you. It's aligning. It's aligning. It's aligning our actions with our aspirations. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. I can say, and I'll use myself as an example. I can say that I want to be healthy. But saying it and then going in the kitchen and smashing a whole bowl of ice cream every day is not really consistent with that desire, right? I can say, a person can say they want a job, but laying in the bed every day and doing nothing, their action is not consistent with their said aspiration. And so, while this may sound elementary, while this may sound trivial to some, the truth of the matter is most of us just get up every day and we wing it. Most of us just get up every day and wing it. And then if you don't know what you want, you end up working for someone who does. And so then we start applying out 8 hours or more a day to help build someone else's empire and help keep their locomotive moving. And then at the end of the day, you've spent all that time there, and then you go home and there's no feeling of accomplishment. You're not satisfied, and then you get some compensation, but then sometimes you even complain about that little piece of check that they give you, right? And so you got a mass exodus from the workforce right now in this present time that we are in, and particularly people who are millennials and Gen Zers, right? Because this is the age group that is saying, I got options, right? And I'm that guy who's saying that there were so many people who at some point have to say, hey, I know what I'm doing, right? But is what I'm doing beneficial? Does what I do matter? Because if it doesn't matter to me, then I'm going to stay in this hostage situation. What do you mean? We're holding our future selves hostage to our present self, because we will not ever become more than we are if we don't decide where we want to go. So the challenge to us today is to align your actions with your aspirations. Talk is still cheap. It's still cheap. And so if values are the how, actions are the why. If values are the how, actions are the why. If you have a compelling why, it will make you get up and get after it. If the why is weak, then the work is going to be weaker. All right. If the why is weak, Frank Craig, the work is going to be even weaker, because if you don't have a compelling why, then the what is going to always struggle. And so we strengthen the what by strengthening the why. Why is the question that you should be asking and answering, because if we don't have a compelling why, then we'll never take the actions towards what we say we desire. And yes, I'm going to say it again, talk is still the cheapest thing out there on the market. And so if you are tired of the talk, then it's going to require that we do a few things. I'll give you these, and then we can wrap up for the day. But it's going to require that you start practicing prioritizing. It's going to require that you start practicing prioritizing. What do you mean? Well, most times our priorities are misplaced. And so that if on any given day, at the end of the day, you take an assessment of the time that you spent and how you spent that time that day. If you spent all your time doing stuff for everyone else and did absolutely nothing for yourself, your priorities are misplaced. And so we have to practice prioritizing. And prioritizing means that you have to literally set what's important. You have to literally determine, are you going to go after what you desire, or are you just going to keep going after what everybody else desires? Priorities are key. Why? Because if we're not practicing priorities, then we're just aiming aimlessly at anything. And then you'll say, I'm tired, but then you can't really identify what you've done. So, not all actions are contributions to our aspirations. And having priorities helps remedy that. It's true. Some people are busy, but they're just busy. They're not building anything. And so we don't want you to just be busy doing a whole lot of things, but we want you to have some priorities. Prioritize tasks based on their importance and the impact on your goals, on your aspirations, on your desires, on your ambitions, right? And so here's how that looks. Here's what. Now let's talk about why. Even Jesus, when his mother came to him at that wedding and said, they want wine, they done ran out. And his first question to her was, exactly what does that have to do with me? Right? Because sometimes people will throw their agenda off on you. And if you don't have your priorities in place, then you end up taking on what does not align with your greater purpose, right? And so sometimes you have to look at the what and then say, well, why would I? Hey, well, here's what is being asked, but why would I, right? So prioritizing our tasks means that you got to ask, will this help push the needle towards me being a better version of myself? Does this align with my values? If a person who values health is going to get up and go for that walk, a person who values health is going to make sure that they know, if I see it, and if whether I know I don't need it, but if I see it, seeing it is just as good as eating it. So I'm going to make sure that I don't even let it get in the kitchen. Right? You don't talk about aligning actions with aspirations. If we really truly have that aspiration, then we'll take actions and we'll prioritize our task, our plans, because I even hear this, you got to prioritize the place that either inspires you or gives you a lack thereof, right? So we got to practice prioritization and prioritizing tasks based on what serves and aligns with and pushes us in the direction of the decision that we make. Actions have got to be consistent with aspirations in order for achievement to happen. We will not accomplish anything that our actions do not align according with those aspirations. It's true. Talk is still the cheapest thing on the market. And the more we talk, the less action we take. But the future belongs to those who learn. I don't even say what I'm going to do. I just take action and I do it. So here's to doing it. If it's going to be, it's up to you. Nobody can do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. So let's align our actions with our aspirations by practicing, implementing priority and prioritizing our time, prioritizing who we give our attention to, prioritizing what we give ourselves to, because if it only benefits the other person, then we have misguided and misplaced priorities. All right, that's it. I'm done today. Hey, Monica Robinson, bless you. Thank you for being on, Reverend. Thank you to our presider, Bishop Tony A. Monk Sr. Thank you for being on this morning. I'm done. But I want to tell you this, that there's something called progress, right? And it has to be celebrated. It has to be celebrated as it's happening. Why am I saying this? Because sometimes we're just in a rush to scratch and mark off, and we never celebrate the progress. The stuff that we're talking about here, man, it's heavy work. It's challenging work. And so what I want to encourage you, those of you who are following along, I want to encourage you today to take a moment to celebrate your own progress. Acknowledge and celebrate your achievements. And sometimes, people think that the only achievements, are when you're called and given an award. But today, award yourself. There's this video going around now where this parent gets up and in an outburst disrupts a school award assembly because her child wasn't given an award. And it speaks to me to the volume of sometimes how we've subjected ourselves to systems that are not designed to celebrate your success. Whether or not you met the requirements for their metric of award, you got to know how to award yourself for getting up and getting after it. You got to learn how to award yourself for the progress that you've made, right? You got to learn how to acknowledge and celebrate your own achievements, and don't compartmentalize achievement. Whether you consider whether somebody else would consider it a big achievement or a small achievement, an achievement is an achievement. And I would say this, that it's celebrating those small victories that are going to help maintain the motivation and the momentum towards doing and achieving more, accomplishing more. Why am I talking about this? Because most times the thing that keeps people from aligning their actions with their aspirations is because we never celebrate or acknowledge those small achievements, those small victories. Man, do you know how much of an achievement it is to get up? Do you know how much of an achievement? I was listening to Craig Rochelle, and he said this. He asked his jiu-jitsu instructor. His jiu-jitsu instructor asked him, like, which belt do you think is the hardest to achieve? And so he immediately says the black belt. And his instructor says, no, it's not the black belt. It's the white belt. Now, the black belt is the highest of high, right? He says, but that's not the hardest belt to achieve. He says the hardest belt to achieve is the white belt because it's the very first belt. And there were so many people there are so many people who would like to, but they never actually take action in order to. And so he said the hardest belt to get is the white belt, because sometimes the hardest thing to do is just to get started. And so actions are important. And if you don't celebrate getting started, if you don't take time to celebrate the small victories, then we risk not maintaining momentum and the motivation towards greater movement. So, hey, I'm rooting for you. I'm here to help you achieve it. And I want you to know it's already in you, and that you have the potential to grow and to become a greater and higher version of yourself, because the objective is to become, not just to do. All right. So here's to aligning our actions with our aspirations and making action plans that are prioritized for your full potential. All right. That's it. I'm done. Thank you for being around today. I'll see you back tomorrow here again. And until then, hey, let's go make today a great day on purpose. Be present for you. What's the one thing? What's the one action you can take today to help move you towards what you desire? What's one action you can take today that will help you be a better you? What's one action you can take today? Now, I can't answer that for you. You got to answer that for yourself. That's your assignment. Getting your actions in alignment with your aspirations starts by you answering that question today. What's one thing I can do to push me in that direction of my decisions? Because all of our lives we're making decisions and then we have to manage them. It's not just enough to make it, but it takes actions to manage it. You got it. Let's do it.